welcome back to my kitchen. Today I've got something so special for you. I'm going to show you how to make my husband's absolute favorite cookie, and we call them Marion cookies after his mother. Her name was Marion Pecora. It's basically a sugar cookie, but without that granulated top that many of us are used to in the South. This ends up being a really creamy, thick, wonderful cookie, and I tell you what, if my sister was here, we'd be brewing a pot of coffee to go with these, because it is the perfect, absolutely perfect cookie to have with coffee. So let's go over the ingredients. So you're going to start with butter, not margarine, but butter. I absolutely love this grass-fed butter from Costco. It is a New Zealand bred. The cows are from New Zealand, and it is 95% grass-fed, which is just almost unheard of. And what that means, for those of you that don't know, is that only 5% of their diet comes from grains. And because it's New Zealand, non-GMO. It's fantastic. You don't need this whole block. We're going to use 3/4 of it. Then the other thing that we're going to add is 1 cup of granulated sugar. You'll also need 2 eggs. We use organic pasture-raised eggs in this. You will need a teaspoon of baking soda, not powder. I'm sorry, it's baking powder. Oops, we don't want soda in it, be too salty, but baking powder. And you can actually pick up the non-aluminum kind at your local grocery store. It's just a little bit healthier. A teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of vanilla. I actually make my own vanilla extract. Maybe one day I'll show you how easy that is. And then 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. So what we're going to do is we'll start putting these things together. I've got to cut this butter up, and I'm going to put it into the mixer with the sugar, and we'll blend that for about 8 minutes. All right, let's blend the butter and the sugar together. So the butter's softened, so I'm just going to drop it in. Again, this is 3/4 of that block. So I like to cut it into squares. Just makes it a little bit easier, and of course it's softened, so this is going to go together pretty quick. It's good to have a towel handy. And then we'll go ahead, I'm going to put the blender on. Sorry if it's a little loud. But just kind of move that butter around, and I'm going to start adding the sugar. And this is one of the most common mistakes that people make when they are baking cookies, and I'm a cookie monster. I absolutely love to bake cookies. But one of the most common mistakes is they don't let this blend long enough. So we're going to let this go. I'm going to turn it up a little bit. We're going to let it go for about 8 minutes, and then we'll see you back. All right, welcome back. We're 8 minutes into the blend, and I'm going to go ahead and add both eggs. So we'll just gradually drop those in and let it incorporate into the batter. So you might wonder, why do you blend the butter and sugar for so long? Have you ever baked cookies and they just spread out onto your baking pan and they kind of look like lace, and that was not your intention? It's because you didn't blend the sugar and flour long enough. So I strongly encourage you to go for that 8 to 10 minutes. Okay, so the eggs are getting blended in. You want to have a little air in there, so we can let this go for another minute or 2. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the vanilla in. It smells so good. I love vanilla. And that's looking really nice. Let me just scrape down the sides. I'm using the paddle on the mixer that actually scrapes the sides somewhat, but I like to get all this goodness down in there. So you can see the batter's a little bit looser now that we added the eggs. Alrighty. So away we go. Oh, I'm gonna add this. Maybe I won't get covered in flour, so we're gonna try it. I do sift the flour, so it's just something that I've always done. I grew up cooking with my mom, and I actually have her old sifter that I use. So Lord, that thing's probably 80 years old. But it just gives you such a finer flour. So here goes the little messy part. And I'll probably stop and scrape down a little bit, but this is actually going together really, really nicely, so we'll see. We may not have to. And it's because I let that butter and sugar really, really blend. When you're baking cookies, don't get in a hurry and just like, oh, I'm just going to dump all the flour in at once, because then you'll end up with a tough cookie, and nobody wants that. And so again, like I said, once we get this all blended together, we're going to throw this into the fridge and let it chill for an hour. It's interesting, but a lot of bakers do that. And what it does, it just keeps that dough consistent. So you don't have that lacy spread out like I was talking about. So I'm going to turn this up just a little bit. This is the stage that you don't want to overdo it. So once I feel like this is blended well, sorry about that noise, I'm going to take this off, scrape down the sides, and we're going to go one more time for about a minute. And yes, the Cookie Monster in me is really wanting a spoonful of this right now. I'd like to know what your favorite cookies are, so post down below. You just never know. I've been baking cookies for ages. I just might have a good recipe for your favorite. So let's have some fun with this. All right. So just a quick turn around. Best purchase ever. KitchenAid blender. Oh my gosh, mixer. Not blender, mixer. If you like to bake like I do. All right, that should be good. So you got this nice, thick, beautiful dough. I actually, because I'm not baking anything or mixing up anything else, I'm going to leave it in this bowl, stainless steel, so it gets really, really cold in the fridge. And I'll meet you back here in about an hour. And we'll roll all this out and pop them in the oven. All right. All right. We're going to roll out these cookies. What I did was I divided the dough in half and just sort of floured it a little bit. And of course you want to flour your rolling pin. And you just start rolling back and forth. And I turn my dough and flip it and get it pretty consistent. Although I personally do not like really thin cookies. I like some thickness to them. So this looks about right. And you'll just take a cookie cutter and just start cutting. And I'm just going to place them on the cookie sheet. And they'll go in the oven, which is already hot. My mom used to be a master at getting the most cookies out of her rollout. I don't think I'm as good as she was, but hey, I don't think there's any wrong way to do this. All right, just gather it all back up. We'll roll again. And you get, I think about 3 dozen cookies out of this, depending on how thick you make them. I'm just going to work this for a second because it's got a lot of flour in it, so I want it to stick. And if you find that it's cracking up and too much flour, you can just add some of the other dough that's on reserve. So if rolling pins could talk, this one would tell a lot of stories, because I believe it's probably about 80 years old. It's been in my family that long. My sister can probably do something in the comments and tell us really how old it is, because it's been around. All right, I'm going to grab some more dough, but basically what I'm going to do now is just roll everything out, cut the cookies, and then we're going to put them in the oven for 10 to 12 minutes. What you want is the edge to be just a little bit brown, and then we'll try them. So I'll see you in about 10 minutes. Okay, this is what the cookies look like when you roll them out and put them on the cookie sheet. And I actually have a tray in the oven, and these are about to join them. Hey, Chow. It's my official cookie inspector. Marion cookies are his favorite thing. One of his favorite things that I make. We've got less than a minute, Chow, and we'll be pulling them out of the oven. You ready? Do you want one hot? Are you ready? You want a cookie? All right. They're almost ready. Yeah, they're almost ready. You know, look at Daddy. Look at Daddy. Tell Daddy. Say, I want a cookie, Daddy. All right, just took these out of the oven, and I'm going to put them on a cookie rack to cool. Those of you that bake a lot of cookies, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir, but if you leave your cookies on the cookie sheet, they're going to keep on baking. These ended up taking about 14 minutes because I have an incredibly slow stove or oven. So you just want to keep an eye on them. Usually it's 10 to 12 minutes. But I'm going to space these out and let them cool off. We have another whole tray. We made these kind of thick, so I really only got 2 dozen. But that's okay. And Marcello's standing by, waiting for me to either drop one or mess one up so that he can have one. All right, there you go. Thank you so much for joining me in my kitchen today, and I hope that you feel inspired to try these cookies. They are incredible. My mother-in-law, I got to meet her before she passed on, and she was 94 when I met her. And one of the things that she told me was to take care of her son. And I always feel like when I get in the kitchen and I make her cookies that I am doing just that. So we'll end with a picture of Marion back in her model days. She was a model and also a jazz singer. And here are her beautiful cookies.